Alright, so hey everyone, today I want to take a look at Back 4 Blood's Deadzones. This is currently the beta. By default, both the left and right stick uses a 10% circular dead zone. Really the left and right sticks are exactly the same, so I won't concentrate too much on movement. 10% is kind of low, so it's interesting that they would default to that, but there are options. And the dead zone is circular, so these are good things. There is a decent bit of restricted diagonal movement around the axes. You can see that I can make these bobbing motions, and the cursor is moving perfectly left and perfectly right in this case. If I kept the view vertically like this, it's very easy to see this threshold. The shape is kind of interesting. It doesn't connect with the dead zone directly. It's a little difficult to see, but full diagonal movement is being registered right around the axis with these kind of small movements. But you see with large movements, diagonal movement begins very abruptly. So this can be a little jarring. It's not really being scaled so that you're not losing very subtle diagonals. There aren't options for this, and there should be since it's being restricted. Players should have an option. Either a slider would give players the most control to control how much restricted diagonal movement they want, either leaving it at default or completely disabling it. The way it currently is, this can make aiming feel more rigid and clunky because your cursor is not moving in the same direction often that your stick is, and being able to disable this would make the controls feel more intuitive and responsive because of that. I've tested the acceleration curve, and I'll show that on screen. There's nothing wrong with the acceleration curve itself, but at the very edge you can see that there is a spike in acceleration, and it's a little difficult to show, but once you get into the shaded region about 95% of the way, the turn speed increases. It is a little difficult to see. I mean, you can just try to look at the rotation of the tree trunk, and once I pass this, you can see that that rotation's increased. The threshold for this that I found is what you see on this graph, and then it goes off this graph in kind of this direction. And this also applies vertically that I found, but I couldn't find a distinct threshold for this occurring in the diagonals. It's possible there might be some acceleration there, but I haven't been able to find a distinct threshold like I could for these regions. This threshold would ideally be completely circular. You should feel the exact same acceleration all the way around perfectly evenly. So that could be changed, and really this kind of acceleration doesn't have an option, and it really should be. Some players don't like this increase in acceleration, and they just want a smooth transition from their minimum speed to their maximum speed. So having a slider to control the intensity of this would be requested from the current amount or higher down to completely disabled would be requested. Additionally, the acceleration curve, it would be great if that could be customizable. This curve doesn't seem like a power function, so it might not be as easy as simply offering the degree to a player to customize. But either offering different curves or a power function with the degree controlling that would be requested, so players could really fine-tune what kind of acceleration they wanted, especially since the acceleration cap, or the sensitivity cap in this game, is pretty decently high. Having a slower starting acceleration curve would allow them to play at higher sensitivities and easily make the same kind of precise adjustments they could with this normal curve at lower sensitivities. Now, movement, I said, is pretty much the exact same. So it's got the same dead zone, the same restricted diagonal movement. The only thing is the shaded region. represents the sprint threshold. So if you try sprinting under this region, nothing will happen. If you try sprinting over it, you'll begin sprinting, and if you fall under it, you'll stop sprinting. It goes off this graph. It actually is also bound by angle. It's like a 45-degree threshold off this graph. So you can kind of see if I move so far, it'll stop sprinting based on that angle as well. Now this threshold is actually a little interesting. When I initially tested it, it was different. It was a little lower, but once I started recording, it shifted to this shape, and this is consistent with the threshold I found at 0% dead zones. So the dead zones options are accurate. So if you set 0, you get a 0% dead zone. And everything is pretty much identical, except you might have noticed that the restricted region scales a bit with this, so it extends a bit lower than it did before. Otherwise, everything is exactly the same. The sprint threshold is the same, and all that. Now, you might have noticed that changing that threshold was a single increment. And the max range of this, I'm not going to demonstrate this with a graph. I just picture the graph being entirely red. So this, you can have an option of getting to 100% dead zone. So this is a pretty crazy range from 0 to 100%. However, you'll notice from the default to 0% is one step. So that means that these increments are in 10% increments, and there's quite a big difference between 0%, 10%, and 20%. Players might want to use a 5% dead zone, they might want to use a 15% dead zone, 3%, 7%, and these options don't have that kind of precision. Changing the slider to increment in 0.01 instead of 0.1 would let players customize the dead zone size in single percent increments. That would give them a lot more control. But that about covers it. So to really sum up, what I just said was change the dead zone slider to 0.01 increments so the players have more control over that. An option to disable or control the amount of restricted diagonal regions so that players have access to full diagonal movement if they want it. An option to control the acceleration happening at near maximum threshold, and make this threshold consistent all the way around the stick region, and offer some acceleration curve options, either different functions or have some power function or a slider to granularly control the degree if that function is compatible with that. But otherwise, that covers it. Thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day.